Now, of late, there's been increased international scrutiny of women's status in Saudi Arabia. In recent months, several young women have fled the country and made public pleas for help in seeking asylum from their family and the government. But the country's crown prince and de facto ruler Mohammed bin Salman has sought to present himself as a modernist reformer since being appointed heir to the throne in 2017. He has dismantled some of the strictest controls over women. Last year, he lifted a driving ban on women, and now the kingdom has allowed women to apply for a passport and travel freely. So is the tide turning for women in Saudi Arabia? Find out in the next report.
On 2nd August, Saudi Arabia published new laws, loosening restrictions on women's travel. The laws will allow all citizens, both male and female, to apply for a passport and travel freely, ending a long-standing guardianship policy that controlled women's freedom of movement. Some Saudi citizens living in Jordan welcomed the new Saudi law ending the guardianship policy.
This
is a big historical day for Saudi women, to be given her rights and the right to issue a passport and to travel abroad. For our country to take this step is not very surprising with all the developments Saudi Arabia is going through on all levels. Of course, we thank our beloved country and His Highness the Crown Prince, and hopefully, if God wills, our country will take further developments in the future.
محمد بن سلمان على هذه التطورات العظيمة، وإن شاء الله بإذن الله أن المملكة من تطور إلى تطور.
Reem's brother welcomed the news as well, thinking about his little sister who will be able to travel on her own without male family members needed to chaperone.
I always encourage the free movement for women. I would also love to see my little sister, my youngest sister, to travel between to Saudi Arabia without me being involved, or my father, or even my little brother.
The new laws, a potential game changer for Saudi women's rights, are to go into effect by the end of the month. The kingdom's legal system has long been criticized because it treated adult women as minors. Women required a man's consent to obtain a passport or travel abroad. Often, a woman's male guardian is her father or husband, and in some cases, a son. Non-government organizations such as Amnesty International have welcomed the reform.
This is really a welcome step, which will translate into greater autonomy and greater agency and more parity for women in Saudi Arabia. One of the most significant reforms that was announced is the fact that women are now able to obtain their own passports, which would allow them to travel without a guardian's consent.
Some of the other reforms include the fact that women are on par now as heads of households. This means that they are able to register debts in marriage and other civil status matters. It also means that they would have legal custody over their children. They would be able to obtain their official documents. But challenges remain. Women who are fleeing domestic abuse or domestic violence and seek protection in one of the shelters in Saudi Arabia would still need their guardian's approval to be able to leave the shelter. Also, women who have served sentences and are ready to be released from prison still would require a guardian's consent and signature. Women, unlike men, still cannot pass on citizenship to their children. They cannot provide consent for their children to marry either.
There still remains a lot to be done, but it will translate into an easing of this guardianship system, which has been a stifling system on the daily lives of women in Saudi Arabia. And one of the most glaring examples or indicators of this has been the growing number of young women and girls who have been fleeing the kingdom in recent months, seeking asylum abroad, mainly because of a lack of protection inside the kingdom against domestic abuse, domestic violence, and the guardianship system overall.
In the last few months, some Saudi girls have fled the country to escape oppression. 19-year-old Rahaf Muhammad is one such person. She now lives in Canada. Then there are the two Saudi sisters who go by the pseudonyms of Reem and Rawan. The siblings have since left Hong Kong to live safely in a new country.